This is The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you beneath the reps and routines and into the raw, unfiltered stories of athletes, trainers, guides, and coaches who've battled through injury, burnout, and life's curveballs to come back stronger. I'm your host, Melanie Webb, and every week we peel back the layers to uncover what really shapes a coach, the setbacks, the scars, and the rebuild. Because behind every strong body is a story of resilience. This is where vulnerability meets strength, where training gets personal, and where we stop pretending that we have it all figured out. If you're a trainer, athlete, or anyone who's been knocked down and fought your way back, you're in the right place. The Mindful Trainer, strip back the surface and train deeper. Subscribe now on Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen. Let's get on to the show. Welcome to The Mindful Trainer, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of athletes, coaches, trainers, and guides who have battled through challenges to reach their goals. I'm your host, Melanie Webb, and I'm joined today by Ryan Gentry, co-founder of Gentry Jackson out of Los Angeles, California.
Thank you.
Ryan is a highly accomplished and sought-after certified personal trainer, a peripatetic genius, husband, and father. And this is Ryan's second time on the Mindful Trainer podcast. Ryan, it is so good to have you back. Thank you for joining me.
You are very welcome, and might I compliment your pronunciation of peripatetic? Not the easiest word to say.
Well, no. Do you know my father was an educator? So somewhere growing up, when he was mad at us, he used to write us letters and stick them on the fridge and use vocabulary that we had to look up
Oh, that's
in the
amazing. I love
dictionary
that.
to understand what he was saying to us.
I did think when I put the word peripatetic on my website, I was like, this is so pedantic and ridiculous. But I kind of like the irreverence of it. If you actually really want to know what the word means, go look it up. Like your dad, right? Too much. There we go.
Yes. Well, Ryan, I feel like we have a super fun, hot topic to explore today. Aging.
Yes.
Ooh, are you ready? We are aging like fine wines. You and I have rounded the corner on 50 now, and we're still setting our sights on fun fitness goals. Yet I feel like often everywhere you look, we hear so many different perspectives on aging. And one of those that I want to talk about today is how you counter the mindsets that say, well, I'm in midlife now. That's just the way it is. Or my best years are behind me. Time to resign myself to the chair. Yes. What do you think about that?
Well, I think, if you don't mind me saying, I think it's bullshit. You know, somewhere I wrote this either on a blog or an article for someone years ago. It was called Shattering GAVA. And GAVA is the generally accepted view on aging. And basically, most people think that, well, okay, we live this desk life. So I'll turn sideways and you're typing, but eventually you start to get tired, right? And your tummy loses its ability to contract and your back just overstretches, but you got to look up and your head looks up, but your neck eventually gets tired and you start to shrug your shoulders and you can't help but your mouth start to make a weird, so you see your jaw starts to hurt. And eventually, after typing and talking on the phone and craning your neck and all this stuff, eventually you might decide that you want to stand up. Well, because you've been in this position forever, you're going to stand up and you're going to go like that. And then, oh, my back. And then you start having a British accent because only Brits talk like. So anyway, I think that people assume that old people look a certain way because that's just the way it's got to be. It's a foregone conclusion that we're all going to age, yes, but it's not a foregone conclusion that we're all going to age in the same way. Now, my mom looks like what I just described to you. And there are reasons for that. We can talk about that another time. And a lot of our family and relatives and friends, even people that are our age, they start to look like that. Now, we can, of course, blame the desk and, sitting behind a desk, which you and I try not to do. I never really, this is probably sitting like this right now is rare for me. I just can't do it. I fidget too much. But I think that if you view the human body like a shopping mall where the anchor store is the brain and everything else in the body, whether it's, you can call it your knees, your muscles, your lymphatic system, call any other part of the body, the stores in the mall. If you stop moving in a certain way, maybe you just don't reach overhead, right? Eventually the brain's going to say, well, Ryan doesn't want to reach over the head anymore. You know what? Let me shut down some of the lights, fire some of the employees. I'll maybe not let his shoulder blade doesn't need to move up anymore. So I'm just going to lock it down. So that's all he needs. Or I don't go walk longer than 400 steps anymore. So says, you know what? You're not going to be able to walk past 400 steps. Or maybe I don't bend over and pick something up, and maybe I can't get my hands past my knees. I can't touch the floor. The longer we tell the brain that it's okay to turn the lights off and shut the stores down, the more that the brain believes you. That's all the brain wants. It wants patterns. It wants to know what you want to do. And unless you convince it, you can't just say, yeah, I want to be able to do all of this. Well, it won't believe you unless you actually do it. Unless your muscles actually engage, unless they stretch and shorten and pump and flush and do all those things, and you get dopamine and all this stuff giving you this meritocracy of, I've done this today, let me try it again tomorrow. It'll eventually start shutting them all down. And so that's it. Now, obviously, people have chronic conditions. People have diseases, they have accidents, they have injuries, they have stuff that's just going to happen because that's the way they were born, or that's a traumatic event that happened. All of that's fine too. And I've worked with clients that have dealt with all of those issues. No one's going to look perfect. No one's going to be the David or this perfect, anatomical representation, which doesn't exist because everyone is shaped differently and they've gone through different stuff. But can we stave off GAVA? Can we mitigate the effects of the world? 100%. Does it just have to be this much improvement? No. Sometimes this much is enough, though. If you get just a little improvement, it might fuel your brain to think, what happens if I get a little more and a little more and a little more? Um, and as long as we don't think that it's ever enough, right? There's never a filling of the cup where it's like, I've done enough mobility, I've done enough strength work, I've done enough conditioning. Now I can take a month off or a week off or a day off or whatever. I'm not saying there are no days off. We definitely need rest, but that's not how the body works. The body is a machine. So it needs its oil, it needs its gasoline, it needs its electric, it needs water, it needs whatever it needs. It needs to, like a sports car, it needs to go fast every now and then. It needs to slow down. So how have I always thought about it? I thought about this stuff when I was really young. I think because I started to work with clients that were really old. When I was in my 20s, I had a 95-year-old client, and I had a lot of clients that were in their 50s, right? Like we are now. And that was old.
Like we
That was
are.
old. And they were complaining about old person stuff. But I've had a few of those clients since then. So some of the clients that I started with that were 50 when I was in my 20s are now in their 80s and late 70s. And they've been working out with me for almost 30 years. So it is the greatest proof of concept ever to be able to take people from their 50s into their 60s, into their 70s, into their 80s, rather than read about it or guess what it might be like. I've seen it. I've seen their surgeries. I've seen their families die. I've seen them go through trauma, emotional and physical trauma. They've seen me go through all of that stuff. And we kind of build on each other and make jokes and laugh and say, who cares? This workout today doesn't matter. We're here. Who cares if you cry because someone died or you have to have a surgery? We just come, we show up, we do a little, we do a lot, and we keep going, and we're together.
You just described the client personal trainer relationship so beautifully that there's so much more to it than just executing an
Ugh,
exercise
yeah.
plan. And that they in turn become these people to us who are so beloved and part of our inner circles, if you will. And I just want to say amen, amen, and preach, Brother Ryan, to everything you just said about the mind-body connection, especially. Would you say that that is the mind-body at work? Like the fact that the brain is involved in movement?
I mean, the brain is everything. What keeps you and I adventuring when sometimes we don't want to, what keeps you and I working out, what keeps us waking up in the morning to go train a client that, after we didn't have a good night's sleep or had an argument with our spouse or kid. I mean, the the brain is such a huge part of it. And I think we mentioned before, I actually mentioned this today in my mobility class. I said to the class, I said, whatever the brain experiences when it's under the most duress is what it remembers the most. Now, I'm not saying I have some scientific proof of that, but anecdotally, I think you would agree as well. The most simple example is if you finish an exercise. So I'm doing an overhead press, and if I finish it like this, and I come down and I come down like this, the thing that my brain's going to remember is it's okay to have all of this happening, and I get the chin thing happening, and my wrists and my elbows are hurting, but I did a great set. It's going to remember that. If at the end of every run you stomp on concrete, if at the end of every single climb, even if you say something ridiculous like that was hard or that sucked or whatever, not that hard is, but it's the subtext, right? There's so whatever you leave the brain with, it remembers because it's all it wants to do. All it wants to do. So yeah, I think that coaching the brain, I think by coaching our clients into understanding that, they coach us well as well, right? Because you and I don't want to be there every day. I've trained, I mean, started when I was 20, so 1995, in March of 1995. Back in those days, I was doing 50, 60 clients a week, um, for years. And I've fortunately, because I can charge more now, and I have my gym at my own place, and I don't have to pay anyone because it's my own gym, I can really limit the hours. But for years, and couple that with adventure. So when you take people out on adventures, that's 24 hours a day, every day,
Yes.
right?
Oh, it's exhausting
Exhausting
work.
work, rewarding,
Yeah.
but you can't
Yes.
get shit faced, while everyone's like, "Oh, guys,
No.
go stand near the edge. I'll take a picture." Right? You can't, right?
No.
So, that my clients have really taught me a lot too. They showed up. My private clients, the ones I have now, especially, very rarely cancel. Very rarely. They never want to come in. They'll tell me, I don't want to be here today. We'll take 3 to 5 minutes at the beginning of the session. My client, Lenny, who's Jewish, she'll call it the Jewish News Service. We call it the JNS. And well, everyone who's died, every problem in the world, we just get it out. Sometimes we'll go walk down the block for even a half a mile. And by the time we're coming back, we're laughing. We come in, she'll get to there, she'll go, JNS. I'm like, let's go do it. So now all my clients know JNS, and it's great. So, yeah, what do you think?
I think those things make it fun. And you're right. Like, I don't always want to work out every day, but I know I'm going to do it. I know I'm going to move my body every day. I don't have a choice in that matter. Like Laird Hamilton actually said this really beautifully. He said, don't stop till they throw dirt on the box.
Yeah, yeah,
And he's a great example of that. Like he's been so banged up and he's always innovating, he's always finding ways to move his body in a way that will allow him to continue to be moving his body when he's
mhm,
90. And one of the things I always like to ask my clients is, when it comes to overhead movements especially, like, do you want to be washing your own hair when you're 90 years
yeah.
old?
Wow,
I know
that's
you
a great
do. I know
that's
you don't
great.
want your spouse doing that for you.
That's a great
Yeah,
one.
and it just makes it very real. And do you want to be able to get yourself up off the floor when you're 85, 90? Yes, yes, I do. Okay, then we're going to stand up quickly. Like standing up quickly from a seated position. Not fun. Nobody likes to do this.
But
But
essential,
like you said,
essential.
it's
And
essential.
speed is different,
It's
right? Speed,
essential.
what people think of as speed,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't have to look fast to someone else, but it might be fast for you, right?
Everything's
Everything's
individual.
individual.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much we can talk about. I
Yes.
mean, on all these topics, but yeah, keep it going. What's next? What do you got?
Yeah, yeah, so much. So, like you said, you a 30-year career, number one, remarkable. Having had some clients for the duration of
Mhm.
that, extraordinary. I'd like to ask you, what would you say are the specific pathways to greatness for people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s? And I think you just touched on them a little bit, but are there any in particular that you want to call out?
I'll tell you what I do and what I started to do when I was the 12-year-old spelling bee nerd who just started to work out. I'm in the physical world now with adventure and fitness, but I always love curriculum. And because there's a safety in the predictability of classwork. So when you have a class, you know that the class isn't the test, the class is for learning. The test, and in this case, the test might be a workout or it might be a hike or an adventure, but the class is for learning. And every now and then there's a midterm, there's a final exam, you get to college, you decide on a major. So, in the case of on our previous podcast, we talked about a trip to the Dolomites, the Italian Alps, planning this wonderful multi day trip to Italy to go climb in the Alps and hike and stay in refugees for days. That's a fitness major, right? That's like, wow. And a lot of people would think, well, I don't even know what do I even need to think about for that. So what I generally will do is like break it down into its component parts, right? So whatever the goal is, make it a fitness goal. I think I have to think to myself, first off, what is the personal stake that I have in this? Like, what is that kind of one or two sentences that describes what I want the experience to be like? If it's Dolomites, for me, it's the camaraderie. So I'm like, I want to train for this trip to share. Like, so if I'm with you, Melanie, I want us to be in a refugio, having a beer, looking out over the trail that we just hiked and think, my God, I can't believe A, that we're here. B, we just hiked that. And C, D, E, and F, all of last year, we did the physical training for that. We did the mental training for that. We worked through all kinds of group dynamics of staying on this path. And yeah, I might be going a little off piste with it, but I feel like on a broad scale, deciding as a goal, and maybe it's an annual thing or even just 6 months, what's the major? What's the adventure or the fitness major? And then either on your own or with friends or with your trainer or your mentors or your family, deciding on, okay, well, if the major is this, what are the classes that I need to prepare myself for the speech I'm going to have to give or, the paper that I'm going to have to write? Are those classes, do I have to learn how to lift weights? Do I have to understand mobility, right? Do I have to hire a yoga instructor or learn Pilates or strict mobility work with someone? What about conditioning? How do I get my heart in shape? If I'm going to go do this Italian Dolomites thing, what is treadmill work or trail work? Who are the people that I should call? Starting to think of what the coursework would be to make myself when the fitness major arrives where I can just show off my skills. So I don't want to get there and make it just a sufferfest. If I've done all my classwork and I've worked with my group and I've done my minors and all of that stuff, by the time I get to the fitness major, it's a chance to show off and share with the group around me. Doesn't mean it won't be hard. Doesn't mean, some days if you're hiking with a backpack or if you're up high and you've never really been 2,000 feet up, maybe you've only been 500 feet at that point. There's going to be fear and there's going to be exhilaration and there's going to be challenge, but it's nothing that you haven't thought about or prepared for in a way that you're going to be as ready as you possibly can be. That might be a little circuitous. We can get more granular if you'd like.
No, that was perfect because, as you've been training over 30 years, you've put your methods into a system. And I like the relatability of a minor and a major and the interplay of the adventurers meets the fitness and the different facets of what's going to be required. And like you said, the camaraderie, because you are such a social, welcoming person. It's true to who you are.
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking this morning before we got on here. It's funny, right? Because for adventure, adventure is always better with other people, especially when they're the right people. So is fitness, but for the most part, your fitness journey is a solo journey. For the most part, over my entire life, most of my workouts have been alone, right? I have workout partners over the year, they change and all that. But in order to stay consistent the way that I want to be, having someone there for the fitness part of it is a luxury. And it doesn't matter if they show up. So I never look at my workouts, so my strength, my mobility, and my conditioning. I never look at those as I won't do this workout if Reza doesn't show up or Ben doesn't show up. I'm doing the workout no matter what. And if they show up, they show up. And yeah, so fitness to a degree, right, is solo. Great when people come. Adventure is always better with other people, but more dangerous if it's solo sometimes, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, you got to be willing to be able to do it on your own and search out mentors to help you stay true to it when there is no one else around.
Yes. I call that who's on your
Yeah,
team.
that's great.
Or that's a question I like to pose. And I have those people on my team. I know exactly who to go to when I need them. And some of those are, the monthly appointment with my body worker that never gets
Ever.
canceled, that never gets
Non-negotiable.
moved, ever. That is a non-negotiable. I need that time. I need her hands on my body. And things like that. I love encouraging people to explore and develop that because we're all going to need to draw on
What are
that
your
at
other
some point.
non-negotiable or some others that you have?
Strength training and my own strength training sessions. Like you said, those are primarily solo endeavors for me. It's been years since I tried to schedule that type of thing with another person. I feel like that's something I owe to
Really?
myself. And typically, I've had to heal from a number of injuries myself, and at that point, it becomes very
Totally.
personalized. And and sometimes you really like the movements that we talked earlier in the first episode about your injury. You've got to be able to introspect a little bit and tune inward and have that introspection and the feedback from your body telling you where it can go next. And as I've gone through those experiences myself, I've had to adapt and I enjoy it. That's kind of one of those, that's my time
Yeah, I agree.
and I enjoy being with others. Like you said, the adventures, love a good adventure with other people. It's not an adventure all by yourself. I've had some by myself as well. And then there's nobody to talk to
Yeah,
about it.
that kind of thing. Yeah, and when you're working out, especially you and I with injuries, you got to be nimble. You've got to be able to adapt and pivot even in the moment. I since COVID and since I basically built a gym at my house in my backyard, I've been able to program my workouts exactly how I want to do them because I don't have to worry about sharing the gym, which is, I would say, anyone who has a space at their place, if you can have at least some equipment to work out on your own, it is a game changer. I think earlier in my career, I would have, when people said, I want to buy a treadmill or some stuff for the house, nobody would ever use it. It turned into a coat rack. But since COVID, I can step outside now. I love like, and this is the nerd, and most people are not like this. You're probably like this. I program every single workout I do the night before or the night before that, every single one. So I've got 1,000 workouts since COVID going back, showing how I progress and all of that. And I do it now for all my clients. And when I used to work out at a gym, I would have templates, but you'd have to switch on the fly, which is if you're starting off as a trainer, I think if you can be in a gym with other people, the absorption of information of what to do, what not to do, who to learn from, who not to learn from, watching poor execution from other trainers is just as valuable a lot of times because you start to see, you start to experience, are they chit-chatting too much? Are they not, is he not listening or is she not listening to the client because they need a moment, and you start to realize what that yin and yang is, what that give and take is. Yeah. What I'll ask you again. So what other? So you got the body work as a non-negotiable, strength training. What else? How many times a week do you strength train
For myself,
on average?
well, I'll change it up a little bit, but between 3 and 5. It depends. Sometimes I like doing, a split type of workout, a chest day or
Yes.
whatever. And I'll do that for months and months
Right.
and
Yeah.
months before I'll get super
Totally.
sick
Yeah.
of it and go back to a
Yeah.
functional regimen. And I like a good functional workout because I want to be able to do things outside. I need the strength. And as I've rounded the corner on 50, I also have an eye on my bones. So, and that's again specific to me. Like I have to at this point because I was a little hyperactive for a couple
Yeah,
decades
welcome
there.
aboard.
So
Sure.
all those cortisol levels, they chipped away at my bones a little bit. So now I'm really starting to hone in on making sure that every one of those strength training sessions has a bang for my buck, if you know what I mean. It might only be 20 minutes that
Right.
day,
Yeah.
but it's going to be
I love it.
hard.
Yeah, I feel like I've learned so much more about my body since I turned 50 and since I've had my own gym and since the injury. The doctor, when he was looking at my x-ray, because they wanted to make sure I didn't have an avulsion fracture. So for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's essentially when the tendon pulled away forcibly from the sometimes that can extract some bone with it. Anyway, when he was looking at the x-ray, he said, well, it's obvious that you can do things that 20-year-olds can do, but it's also obvious that you have a 50-year-old joint, right? Meaning he could see just little bits, and I have almost no pain in my body for the most part. And we looked at my stuff, and it's like there are little bits of arthritis. If you looked at MRIs of my knees, both of which I had surgery on, you would think I needed a knee replacement. Yet I can fully flex and extend my knees. I can load them up with weight. I can hike, and there's no pain in my knees ever. Lateral treadmill, backward treadmill, all of these different, movement patterns to get the muscles around the knees to solve the problem rather than the joints. It's very interesting what a picture can tell you, which is very useful. But the truth of it, if the muscles can solve more of the problem, then the joints will be cool. Joints always want to solve the problem. They're eager beavers, right? Yeah. I would say, yeah, me too. 2 days a week of like really concentrated. And then, like you say, who knows, right? After a few months, I switch it up all the time. No judgment either. I'm like, you know what? Screw the functional stuff. I want to go heavy for a while. The heavy will never last for too long. What about mobility and conditioning and that kind of stuff? Where do you put those?
Mobility, high priority. I love that you talk about that so much. I think mobility is critical, right? The range of motion around the joint. For those listeners who don't know the difference between mobility and flexibility, I prioritize mobility and movement over flexibility.
For our listeners, how would you define or describe the difference between it, mobility and flexibility?
Yes. I look at mobility as the range of motion around a joint. Shoulder being one of the best examples. Can I raise it over my head? Can I do a movement called circumduction, like a circular motion? Can I raise it out laterally versus, and I'll use the legs now for flexibility. Maybe I'll use a yoga pose like down
Hmm.
dog because that's one everyone's very familiar with, especially when it comes to hamstring
Perfect
flexibility.
example. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think of flexibility being a muscle. I'm just honing in on a particular muscle versus movement. How about you? How do you
Yeah, I
describe
think that's
that?
great. Yeah, I look at it as mobility has multi dimensions, where flexibility sometimes has single dimensions. I'll always tell when we're going into certain mobilities during the mobility class. So I'll use the couch stretch as an example. I call it the half kneeling whoozy what's it. But couch stretch is essentially um, you take a pillow, put one knee on the pillow, and that same foot on that knee side will go up on your couch, and your other foot is forward. You guys can look it up. Anyway, I'll say squeeze that butt until you feel about a 7 or an 8 stretch. And I want you to be able to, from that movement, take that thigh and start to rotate it, or take the pelvis and start to rock it back and forth so that we're not locked at an 8, 9, 10 where you're just holding on for dear life and the muscle's like fibrillating and shaking at its end range. We want to basically bump into the edge of range of movement and then jostle. So wiggle, you said circumduct, but it's like taking that ball joint. Ball joints have at least 4 sides, right? So your hip has a front, a back, an outside, an inside, and everything in between. So just getting it to do all of this rather than just that.
Yes. And what Ryan just did with his hands, those who are listening, he moved his arm in a front to back motion. So I like to also help people understand that so much of our life is taking place in this 1 to 2 foot space in front of our bodies right now. The computer, the phone, driving, cooking, But the human body is meant to move in four directions, kind of like you described the joint. We are multi-planar, multi-dimensional beings. And to optimize the body, you've got to move laterally. Like you said, you've got to move backwards and circular. And that's the beauty of the way we're designed also, is that we can do these things. But to go back to an earlier point of yours, if you stop doing those things, it's almost as if the brain, like you said, it starts to turn off the
Yeah,
lights in that
starts
department.
firing people, right? It starts saying, "Guys, stay home today." They're not gonna go do that. And it's true. Someone said to me one day too, if you can do something one day, check in the next day and see if you can do it. As long as you can keep doing it the next day, you can keep doing it the next day. Again, barring a traumatic injury or the onset of something that you can't control. It's a very simplistic way to look at it, but it's also true. If you get into one of the mobilities and do it again tomorrow and do it again tomorrow, my 84-year-old client can get into the couch stretch as well as anyone in their 20s. Now, how she feels it compared to them with her body, you and I luckily will know in 30 years, right? I can't know exactly what she's feeling, but I can guess. And she also will tell me verbally and with her finger, sticking your finger at me, telling me that this really hurts.
Oh, they'll tell you.
Yeah. So yeah, that's mobility. What about, and not to take over the question, what about conditioning and like whatever your definition of conditioning, I mean, your cardio and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So that again, for me, became very personalized a couple of years ago when I started having a little bit of heart trouble after a couple of COVID vaccines. It knocked me sideways. And I literally had to go to a physical therapist. And I have 9 months worth of records on my polar heart rate monitor app
Wow.
showing me working my way into a zone 2 to try to stabilize my heart rate because my blood pressure would drop and then my heart rate would follow, right? So I had to retrain my nervous system to communicate with the cardiovascular system. It was a incredibly boring slog of a process. And it had to be done on the treadmill because I couldn't control the slope
Mm.
when I was outside. I couldn't get on just the right exposure to get me to the heart rate that I needed. So I spent literally 9 months on the treadmill. Sometimes I could use the bicycle, but Peloton didn't work. I couldn't do any kind of programming like that because, again, I needed it to be super hyper individualized for myself.
That's interesting. Were you having a hard time, like, so getting from zone one to zone two to zone three, when you were exerting, was it hard to get the heart rate to go faster or stay at an even keel or all of that?
I would get tachycardia episodes, and it was
Yeah.
positional. A lot of people know
Yeah.
POTS, dysautonomia, and, sometimes I would even just roll over in bed and my heart rate would
Just go
escalate to
crazy.
over
Yeah.
150 beats per minute.
It's
It would just go
nuts. Yeah.
crazy, and it was scary and there was no explanation for it, and, you feel lousy too. I just tended to feel bad. I would get lightheaded and dizzy doing hikes that I did all the time, and I couldn't explain it. So I had to scale back and stay and retrain in order to make leaps and bounds forward. And now what that looks like for me conditioning wise is that I can't skip 3 days in a row of conditioning my heart, or I can have a little bit of a backslide. Like you said, my nervous system will be like, oh, we don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to default now. And my default now is in a different place. So my body likes a lot of movement. It always has. I need a slow warm up if I am going outside or to do a hike or a bike ride with others. Sometimes I'll do a pre warm up before I meet up with them just so I can get my heart where it needs to be to start the workout. But if I can do a slow warm up, then I can go for hours and I'm back in a healthy range now. So we'll do a little hit workout now and then with a jump rope and with plyometric
Love it.
skips.
I did some of those yesterday. It's so amazing. I do something cardiovascular almost 7 days a week, but different styles. I'll use multiple machines. So I'll use my elliptical, my airdyne, my treadmill, my rower, jump rope. I also have a little patch of grass. So if I want to do some plyo stuff like side stuff or broad jumps or anything like that, I can go out there. But basically, what I'll do is I'll do a little micro circuit on the elliptical. Maybe it's increasing resistance or elevation, but call it 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, right? I'll go right from that to a mobility. So maybe I'll go stretch the front of my thigh, or I'll do an elevated pigeon, or I'll do a spinal wave or something, 30 seconds per side or a minute total. So cardio, mobility, and then I'll pick a conditioning exercise. It could be anything. I could even just be biceps, but a lot of reps. Then I'll go onto the treadmill and do a little segment on the treadmill, get off the treadmill and do a different mobility, pick another exercise, it could be anything, and get on the Airdyne. Maybe I'll use 3 machines, maybe I'll use 2 machines, maybe I'll mix it up. But I've been finding over the past year or so that weaving in little blasts of specific mobility, and I'll do these for 45 to 60 minutes. So I'll visualize like I'm going to go on a really long hike. So the hike's going to have really steep sections and really flat sections, and that's kind of what will happen when I'm, during this whole thing. But I want to make sure that at the end of it, I'm feeling more mobilized than I was at the beginning. So by the time I get to the second, third, or fourth round, my thighs have really opened up in a different way than they normally would have. My glutes are firing. My spine is feeling legit, as opposed to a lot of times at the end of some of these CrossFit-y, Metcon-y type workouts, you're just dead. And I thought to myself, is dead ever really what the goal should be? And I think it's not. I think, of course, there are some points if you're training for something that you've got to be a killer for, that's a different scenario, right? But still, it's even then, again, what's the brain remembering, right? So that it can be more and more resilient. So anyway, so a couple times a week, I'll do this kind of just cross all over the place thing, go for a hike once or twice a week, right? 4 miles, 6 miles, 8 miles, whatever it is. And then everything in between. Maybe I'll pick elliptical and treadmill and just do 7.5 minutes on one, um, working my way through the different zones. So one day will be, I really, at some point during the work, will get my heart rate up super high. The bulk of the week, it's zone 2, zone 3. So for me, that's, 130s into 140s rate. For the average will be that. And then, 1 or 2 days where I'm barely even scraping 130. It's just like I'm on there, I'm listening to my music, I'm moving, and I'm like literally telling myself, and it's hard for me to do it, say, calm down, asshole. Just take your time. You don't have to, you're not killing it today. We're just on the machine, we're chilling, we're on a stroll. And that's hard, right? Because there's the competitive side. Hiking, sometimes we'll have to tell ourselves as a group, let's stop, let's take a look around. Dolomites, it's easy because in that case, we're there for 8 days. But if you're on a 1 day or a 2 day, sometimes you're just crushing. And, but you got to take the moments. Anyway,
Your workout sounds really fun. I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that short bursts on different pieces of cardio equipment mixed
I'll
with a
send you.
modality
I'll send you
movement.
the.
I like that a lot. I would
Yeah,
love
we
that.
can. I don't have a name for the style yet, but it is a conditioning workout. My clients love it. I'll nerd out with you for 1 second. So the treadmill ones, I'll do a 30-second walk, 20 to 30 lateral steps in one way, 20 to 30 lateral steps in the other way, walk 30 seconds, and then anywhere from 50 to 100 backward steps, 30-second walk, and then 30-second very steep hill run, right? Not a sprint, just it feels when you have just a little bit to go, like just pick it up, right? And then I'll do that either one time through, 2 or 3 times through, and then I'll get off and do my mobility, and either I'll come back to that or go to something else. But just these little tidbits of not 2 minutes of lateral stepping, not 5 minutes of backward stepping, just a little bit, so that we get that joint action of like we're moving laterally, we're moving the other way. When you're going backward walking, the thighs can really feel it in a
Yes.
completely different way. And the thighs are your decelerators. So if you're going downhill when you're hiking, the thighs need to elongate, the sarcomeres, the muscles need to, open up so that they get drenched in blood. And anyway, moving your body in all these different planes and directions, and initially starting off with less than you think you could do. Some people think I could do, 20 steps laterally is not enough. It's like, shut up. How often do you even do it? Never. Okay. So for the next few months, you're just going to do that. Get better at maybe going faster. So maybe you started off at 2.0, maybe eventually you're going to get to 4.0 or 4.5 for those 20, right? You right the ship, you do the other side, you go backward. By doing that, it's hitting so many different parts of your joint and your body and your muscles, and the brain has to be thinking like on a trail, right? I think it's the best thing for your brain because you're constantly, and you don't even have to think about it when you're doing it. It's like, there's a rock there, there's this there, there's a divot there. Oh, the trail looks, I need to go on the side of the trail, it's better grip. That looks sandy, I'm going to move around and I'm going to go a little faster, I'm going to go a little slower. It's bump, 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 bump. All this in the brain is, active. Sorry.
Love it. Ryan, I could talk shop and nerd out with you all day. So I think we're gonna have a third episode eventually.
Let's do it.
Before we wrap up today, can I ask you to share a couple of your most compelling client transformation stories? You've had some clients for the duration of your career, and that's
Yes.
unusual.
I don't want to choose one over the other. There are three that, I mean, there's a ton, but the three that come to mind quickly. Lynn is 80, she'll be 84 in 12 days. So Lynn, and her story, she had a car accident when she was in her 50s. They said she'd never walk. That's Lynn. Eileen, I've been training for 2 years less than Lynn. Eileen is close to 80 herself. She was born with rheumatoid arthritis, has had every joint replaced in her body. And the third option is Yuchi. He got leukemia. I love it. This is exciting for them. Yuchi had leukemia, basically came back twice, the bad kind, where basically within 5 years, 80% of the people are dead, and basically training with him. All the stories are interesting. Which one resonates with you?
I don't think I've ever met anyone who was born with rheumatoid arthritis. Eileen.
I cannot vouch for, because I wasn't there when she was born, but basically, she was an orthopedic mess. These are her words. Since the moment she popped out, everything was going wrong. She was always battling weight and other issues. And when she came to me from being overweight to joint failure, everything started to go wrong quickly. And when I started to work with her, almost instantly, she needed a knee surgery. She needed a foot reconstruction. Her toes and everything were all gnarled up, bunions. Over the years, she's had both hips replaced, both knees replaced, foot reconstruction surgery a few times, and shoulder surgery. So anyway, everything has gone wrong, right? But we've been working together through all of those rehabilitations for over 20 years. She never, ever wants to come in the gym. But all we do for 80% of the class is make fun of each other and laugh. And some days we work really hard, and some days she'll come in and we'll both cry because it's too much. And she's like, I just can't do it anymore. Yet she never cancels. And I've had clients over the years that will come in and say, I got this thing right here. What do you think it is? These questions. And like, I don't think I can extend my arm. And I can't use Eileen as the moral high ground, but Eileen has this thing multiplied by 400. And the fact that we're able to focus on strength, she loves lifting weights, hates it, but loves to feel like she's strong. And she loves to, if you've watched any of my Chow Mama videos on Instagram, Eileen is kind of one of our featured guests. She got tattoos all over her body. She was an agitator in college, protesting all of the wars and everything. She was nuts. And she's still that same person today. But I think the message out there is there's always someone who's got worse physical problems than you do. And especially those with the issues that seem and basically are, because they're insurmountable, right? There's nothing that you're ever going to be able to do with some of these conditions. They exist with you forever. What are the options? Because the option is to go the GAVA route, the generally accepted view on aging. You could just accept that everyone's going to get old and get gnarled and not be able to move and shut it down. Or you can search out help. Eileen's lucky because she's able to afford a personal trainer. Very quickly, Lynn, that's been with me since she was in her 50s and she's 84 now, had an accident in Mexico. The doctor told her she would never walk again, and if she did, she'd have a limp. Well, 30 years later, She can do walking lunges across the gym unassisted. She can drop into almost, ass to grass squat. And she can do basically anything I ask her to do. And she'll complain the whole time, but we'll laugh and we'll criticize each other. We'll make fun of our vocabulary if I use a word incorrectly or vice versa. And it's just there's always a way. It's so cliche. That's stupid. But I mean, there's always a way. And don't be afraid to ask people for help. If there is going to be something magical that happens, my dream can't be bigger than your dream. If my dream is bigger than yours as the client, we're done. We're dead in the water.
Well said, my friend. I'm just going to put a pin in that one. Thank you for sharing those two stories too. It's so rare that a trainer would be in one place long enough to have clients for 30 plus years. So to watch them through those changes in their body is really special and remarkable. And I'm sure you hold a very special place in their hearts.
We're family. I mean, you can't not be after all these years. We're
Yeah.
family. And, it's one of the reasons why I've stayed in the business as long as I have, where opportunities come up and I'm thinking to myself, God, I can't imagine not seeing these people that are so special to me every day. Where do they go? Again, we're all expendable in many ways, but the deep relationship of 30 years, that isn't expendable.
No, you don't just discard that. Well, there are so many golden nuggets in this. I want everyone to know that there will be a written transcript on the website. And you mentioned your Chow Mama. It's very entertaining, those segments on Instagram. And now they'll know who they're watching too. So where can people
I
find
think Instagram is probably the best, and or through you. But my Instagram is Ryan M. Gentry. So Ryan M as Michael Gentry. And on my Instagram, you can go to the Chow Mama videos. I created those for my mama, who lives in South Carolina, because I can't see her all the time. We just started putting together videos because it's easier for her to go on YouTube or go on Instagram and just follow them along. And if anyone ever wants me to make a personal Chow Mama for them, they can reach out to me and I'll make it for them.
I'm going to have my mom take you
There you
up
go.
on that.
I love it. Cool.
This episode of The Mindful Trainer is brought to you by Hammer Nutrition, fueling athletes with clean, effective sports nutrition since 1987. Whether you're training for your next big adventure, recovering from an injury, or just trying to feel your best day to day, Hammer has your back with science-backed products that support sustained energy, mental focus, and optimal recovery without the sugar crashes or artificial junk. Personally, I rely on Hammer's endurance fuels and recovery tools to power through long hikes, bike rides, and everything in between, especially on adventures like my recent trek below the rim in the Grand Canyon. Visit hammernutrition.com/Melanie9160 to take 15% off your first order.